Welcome to the Common Thread Radio Show. This show is dedicated to discussing tough issues that affect today's society, like indifference, bullying, prejudice against race, creed, color, preferences, gender, and national origin. The purpose of our show is to find a commonality that we can all agree on or accept. Now here's the host of the show, James Kelly. Hello and welcome to the Common Thread. I'm your host, James Kelly, and my guests for today's show are Terry Arnold and Jessica Martin. Thank you, ladies, for being here today. Terry, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Okay, thank you so much, James. My name is Terry Arnold. I'm actually involved in two ministries. I work with two wonderful men. One is David Heavener, and the other is Del Davidson of Las Vegas Tonight. And I enjoy it very much. And Monday nights, if you tune in 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, you can see David Heavener on Facebook Live or YouTube.
And Jessica.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me here. I'm a respiratory therapist here in Las Vegas, and I'm also a director of a clinical education for a college out here.
Okay. And we're going to be talking about something that's a little unusual today. We're going to be talking about religion, but we're going to be talking about the different religions, and we're also going to talk about how that plays into the medical field. And we're going to also discuss a little bit with Jessica some of her experience. So, Jessica, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about your history when it comes to medical, what you do, what you're studying?
Well, goodness, could be a while. Anyway, well, I first started out as a cosmetologist, and I got very sick in and out of the hospital. That led me to be into the medical field, to be a part of somebody to help people like me. And I just continued to educate myself. Till this day, I'm still in education. Something that I strive for is quality in patient care. Since I have been a patient, I know what it feels like to have quality, and I just want to bestow that on to patients and everybody else who takes care of them. For the most part, I'm a patient advocate, I guess you can say.
Well, you've had quite an experience yourself, health-wise, and I know that plays into what we're going to be discussing today. Give us a little bit of a background of what happened there.
Well, yes, I have been a patient. I have been misdiagnosed. I have had several surgeries. I have taught myself how to walk again through doctors' mistakes. To be honest with you, I think that's what has driven to who I am today, is what I've dealt with.
Are you an RN?
I'm a respiratory therapist.
That's right, you're a respiratory therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And just interestingly enough, my mother was a cosmetologist.
Oh, yeah.
And then became a physical therapist.
Okay.
So that's interesting. But anyway, yeah, it's amazing what shapes our life. We never know what's going to turn us in one direction or another. And because you had so many things happen to you health-wise, you're out there now as an advocate for those people to try and say, or do something at least to try and help people who are in the same situation you've been in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did you take those experiences with your health and turn it around? What are you doing now that's helping other people?
Well, for example, I am community outreach. So I reach out to other patients other than the ones that are in the hospitals to try to help. If it's home care, chronic, I used to run a cardiopulmonary rehab. It's all aspects of healthcare for cardiopulmonary. Unfortunately, I've never had anything cardiopulmonary, but that has been the biggest drive for me in life and something that I can really understand. I've never been able to relate. I never had oxygen. I don't have asthma. I don't have anything like that. But for some reason, that was the drive for me to help, was cardiopulmonary patients.
And I wanted to talk about how religion plays into this a little bit today, because you deal with patients from every walk of life. And we even talked about before we went on the air how you even deal with people from other countries. So not just in the United States that are from different backgrounds or nationalities, but also from all over the world, because we're in Las Vegas. And Vegas really is a melting pot for everyone, not just to live here, but visiting here. So I'm sure that you run across people from, I know we talked about Great Britain, I don't know, where else?
Oh, yeah. Australia, France, England.
How is it for you when you're dealing with a patient as far as the religious aspect goes, in that we were talking about, for instance, if someone's maybe got a last rite and they're Catholic and they need the rosary in the hands. What's that experience been like for you?
It's completely respectful. Everybody has their right to their religion. And so if we have a patient that is on their deathbed and they had a rosary in their hand, we try to be respectful as healthcare providers and keep that rosary in her hand, in the process of maybe, unfortunately, doing a code blue or rapid on her, just to make sure that her respectful understanding of, hey, we understand you're Catholic. You had this rosary in here. We're not going to let it fall on the floor. We're going to make sure that you still have it.
And we even talked about in dealing with staff, in that you have to wear the PPE, and yet some people had what's the headdress?
Like the turban.
The turban, or even with the Jewish cap.
Yeah.
And I should know that one, but anyway. But you have to respect everyone's religion and everyone's belief, no matter what you're doing in this field. And I'm curious with you, even with your health care, did you encounter anything different? You've been through so many things. What was the first thing that you went through, as a matter of fact? Let's just discuss that.
I can definitely, it was like yesterday, I was taking care of a baby that was drowning, and that baby was on mechanical ventilation, and we didn't know if that baby was going to survive. And their family was 100% Catholic. There were everything, there was crosses in the room, and we even had to give the family time to pray. Even if we had to go in and we had to do rounds on that baby to make sure that baby was okay, we had to understand the family was around the bed and they were praying. We could not interrupt. We had to let them finish their prayer before we needed to attend to that baby. As long as that baby was safe and that baby wasn't struggling, we had to give that family the respect that they needed.
Have you had any other experiences of something like that? I mean, does that interfere with the care?
No, it shouldn't interfere with the care. We watch the babies. Or we watch our patients, we round on different ones. I mean, there's a reason why a CNA comes in and does vitals at a different time that a respiratory therapist comes in different to give breathing treatments for an RN to do rounding. Either way, we have eyes on our patients. So it doesn't matter what time of the day. I know people say I never get any sleep, but it's a good thing you don't get any sleep because we have to make sure that you're okay. And so we have different eyes looking at you all times. They just don't realize that.
Well, and having been a patient myself over the years, I do understand. I used to get annoyed when they would wake me up every 2 hours to sit up and cough. But that's how you keep your lungs clear. So there are reasons for torturing us.
Yeah, I know. Well, that hospital came from hospitality, right? So at some point, there's got to be hospitable marks.
Right. We have a list here of the different religions, and it's interesting. I printed this out, and we were talking before we went on there again about we didn't realize there were this many different religions in the world. And by the way, when we get to some of these, it may mention one religion, and there's about 13 different variations of that under each of these religions. So when you encounter someone I grew up with someone next door who did not believe in medical aid at all. Have you ever had to deal with a situation where it's like that, like the family saying, no, we can't do that because it's against our religion? And how do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, blood products. There are certain religions that cannot absolutely take blood products. It's completely against their religion, and we have to respect that. And it doesn't matter if you have a child that is fighting for a life, and the only way that you can save that child's life is by blood. We still have to respect the religion.
I don't know. I don't think I could deal with that.
When it comes to religion and healthcare, it has to be 100% respectful. We have to give that religion integrity. It's an ethical thing when it comes to healthcare. Absolutely. There's a reason why every single healthcare provider has to do 2 CEUs of ethics every time they get a license renewal, because we have to be in an understanding that regardless that we know how to save the patient by giving the patient blood products, we also have to understand we have to let that patient go based on the family's understanding.
How does that tie into, I thought that there was an oath that a doctor takes. You have to do everything you can to save a life, or is that not exactly right?
That's not exactly right because paperwork's involved. And you can actually, the POA, especially if it's a child who needs blood products, if the parents can show proof that they're the parents and this is what they said, we have to respect that. We do have papers that they have to sign to confirm that your daughter or son will not survive without blood products. But this is what you decide. So in a way, we are understanding the oath that we have to do everything we possibly can, but then we have to back off.
And the reason I bring that up is because we have so many different religions here, and having studied a few of these myself over the years, one of the things I know is that a lot of people believe in spiritual healing. And how does that factor in? Because it's confusing to me in that if you have spiritual healing and someone's in a hospital, why are they in the hospital if someone's believing that spiritually they can be healed that way? And I think we shared how I feel about it. I believe that a doctor really is an extension of God, that they're the hand of God in a way. Mm-hmm. So when someone says they're acting on their own, I don't necessarily believe that, but everyone's entitled to their own belief. And the reason I say that is that why wouldn't you want a physician or a nurse or someone to step in and help if they could, if you just took on the belief that we're all of God in that way?
Well, in some different aspects when it comes to spiritual healing, majority of the time, they think that maybe they're in the right place at the right time with the right person. And that person is healing through their spiritual understanding. I'm praying for a doctor who has knowledge in what I need to feel better or to have my symptoms go away. I mean, when they're praying, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're praying to just their extended part of the whatever you want to say, but they're praying that Dr. So-and-so is going to help me through this. I came to the right hospital at the right time,
So
things
that's
like that.
great, but then there are some people, though, who believe that they can just heal completely with prayer.
Absolutely. I believe that. I've seen that firsthand.
Oh, you have?
I have. Absolutely. Flooring.
So what do? You just step back and let...
Yeah, it's definitely out of
I
ours.
never thought I would hear that.
Oh, yeah. No, I have for sure. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
My first years of working in the hospital, I had a woman who we knew she wasn't going to survive. By the medical books, we knew she was not going to survive. So when it comes to that, we like to ask the patient if they would like their last rites. You know, that's kind of how we do things. If we feel that the patient is very religious and prays a lot and things like that, we do. And we considered the patient to not survive. And we were kind of figuring out what we were going to do. And no, it's like the next day, I can't even tell you. It was a miracle. I saw it. Everybody in my team saw it. We were just like, what happened overnight? What is going on? Like, it was crazy.
You know, I think I've heard a lot of stories like this. But
Mm-hmm.
do you think a lot of it has to do... I know faith is a very important thing in life. But also, do you think sometimes it has to do with the will of the person? You know,
Absolutely.
I have a family member who was diagnosed. I went home. They gave this person 6 months to live. And that person is still alive today, 8 years later. So I do think sometimes determination, now you can call it faith if you want, which it is in a form of faith, but it's also a personal belief, like, I'm not going to let this happen. This is not going to happen to me.
Mind over matter.
Yeah, mind over matter. Sometimes it can be construed as faith.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if it's not that person's strength, maybe it's the strength of others around them that gives them the strength they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terry, are you dying to say something there?
No.
Well, I mean, for example, when I was going through and I was taking care of COVID patients, my mom would be praying for me and my knowledge and keeping me safe, taking care of the patients that have COVID. I'm in that environment, you don't know at that time. And so my mom would always say, well, I'm praying for you, and I have all my 500 prayer warriors praying for you as well to make sure that you're staying safe and healthy, so those kind of things.
You're right in the danger field.
I am. I'm a frontliner for sure.
Yeah.
Up there with the nurses. Yep.
And I know you have a few opinions, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, and we're all different in that. I do want to touch on that a little bit, because it does have to deal with what we believe.
Absolutely.
And I had my shots. I know you have not, and it's interesting because you're in the health field.
Mm-hmm.
You can honestly say your opinion. That's okay. Why is it you haven't had the shots?
Because I've seen a lot. I've seen on both ends of the spectrum, and I just don't trust the science yet. Just feel like it's not an eradication of something. I think it's maybe the new flu that we've always had. I just don't trust the science behind it yet. It just doesn't have enough research.
Isn't COVID a form of a flu anyway? I mean, I thought COVID's been around for a long time.
Corona.
Okay.
Coronavirus has been a long time.
It's just a different strand of the coronavirus.
Yes. It's a very dangerous strand for sure.
I'm not denying that it's a dangerous thing.
No, I've definitely. I mean, unfortunately, I've had too many patients die on me with COVID, and I've held their hand because they didn't have family or friends because they weren't allowed to. And you were the last person that they saw. You just hold that.
Yeah.
It's just really hard.
We've also seen the opposite of that, where you've actually had a patient who had a shot and has gone through this as well.
Unfortunately, yes. We do currently have some patients on mechanical ventilation, which is what you guys think as life support, that had no comorbidities, and they're fighting for their life because they had the vaccine. So it's like I said, it's not enough studies for me to trust it 110%. I read a lot of research based on my education, and I'm just not sold yet.
Okay. It's interesting because you're there in the field every day. So I want to ask you this, and I don't know if I'm going overboard by asking you this, but do you feel, and I think it's PTSD,
Yeah.
do you think that is a part of what you have to go through when you're in that field?
Oh,
because
gosh.
you see so many people go through this, how could you not have to take that home?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of healthcare providers can totally be on my side. When we get home, we strip in our garage. Some of the healthcare providers I know built a tent in their extended part of their house and slept in a tent because they didn't want to sleep with their family and get them sick. because you just don't know. At that time, they said that, it was going to be on particles, it was going to be on furniture, it's going to be on doors. They didn't tell us until later that it won't stay on surfaces. So yeah, I had my husband open the door for me and open the shower. I didn't touch anything in the house, and I stripped completely naked in the garage and left everything there and didn't touch it for 48 hours because I knew that if you would spray it with Lysol, those particles would go up in the air and potentially you can breathe them. So I just let it stay there.
That's something I hadn't heard.
Yeah.
Because I always spray down in the studio after a guest.
Yeah. You want to be careful you don't make like an aerosol because you don't want to breathe it. So if you do, you want to make sure it's like on a surface and it doesn't give you that.
Maybe I should have asked you this a few months ago.
Yeah, I know. It carries with a host. So if it's a host of liquid or something or some kind of a matter, the virus can carry with a host.
So are you saying you're an advocate for the shot or not for the shot?
Some people it works well for. Some others, I don't think mandating it to everybody because everybody's immunity is different and genetics play a big role in it. And for somebody like me and somebody like you who've had some medical issues, it's very chancing. I mean, I've taught myself how to walk again. I just don't want to go down that road. I take care of patients with mechanical ventilation. I don't want to see myself like that. So if I'm fine right now and I'm keeping myself clean and I'm doing my proper PPE, I'm just going to kind of see where it goes from there.
And so this goes back to what we were talking about when it comes to the religious aspect on a world scale. Obviously, we now see, I think it's India that right now is going through a crisis with COVID-19, I believe. There's a huge insurgence of people catching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know all over the world there's different religions. How does that play into this? Like, I mean, if you're respecting what their wishes are, which if they believe they can heal it on themselves, do we have that right to just go in and say, well, no, we're going to give you the shots? I will tell you this with polio. That actually happened.
It was eradicating, though, and there was lots of research on it. I mean, the polio is completely different than the COVID for sure. I mean, if you look at the studies, I mean, there was massive amount of research before they actually did that, and that eradicated it. I mean, they're saying now that we have to have 3 shots because they're not sure if it's going to work. So that's why it just...
I know I went and got my second shot, and then that's literally what they said. Oh, well, this card... I said, why is there so many places on the card? Well, when you get your booster, I said, I thought I only had to have 2 shots. They go, well, probably next year you'll need to have another one. And then I said, well, is that the last one? Not necessarily. So I get what you're saying. It's like, I thought I was just going to get 1 shot or 2 shots, and now it's like, nope, you're going to get boosters.
You just got to have the studies. You got to have the years. Vaccines, it takes up 10 years, usually, good studies.
So that's a good point you're bringing up here. It's like, do you think they rushed this too much?
I do. I absolutely do. Yeah. And I don't think that media helped with that as well because nobody was able to make their own decision. They kind of all made their decision for them because of what they read, what they saw, what they know. I just don't feel that we did it the way that we should have done. I mean, it was so rushed.
So what about the people, like I know you can't travel to another country without that card showing you've had your shots. How is that going to affect the world? What's going to go on there? Because if you want to go out of the country, you really just can't do that.
Right. I'm sure that there's going to be some paperwork for declinations because there are certain people that cannot absolutely take it. Like, for example, a patient with MS, you cannot take the COVID vaccine. There is actually good studies on that.
Are they going to be able to travel?
There's got to be a declination because there's a declination for everything else. Why wouldn't there be a declination for the COVID if you wear a mask?
But my point is this, is that fair? Because is it fair to say that I can't travel unless I have the shots? If it's of my choosing not to have the shots? If I'm healthy, I mean, obviously I could have it if I'm healthy, but if I don't want them, is that fair to say, well, now you can't travel, but someone who hasn't... I'm not saying that we should force anybody to have the shot, ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying it's kind of not fair to anyone who chooses not to have the shot as well. It's almost like punishing you, but yet someone who has an ailment, they don't have to have the shot and they're going to be allowed to travel. Because keep in mind, we're all going to be in the same cabin if we're flying.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be on the same boat if we're on boat. We're going to be in the same bus or car. So that seems odd to me.
I mean, I wouldn't mind wearing an N95. I really wouldn't. I wear an N95 all the time anyway. So, I mean, if that's it, if they're like, well, you just have to keep the mask on the whole time, duly noted.
But
I will absolutely keep that mask on.
Situation for someone who is healthy if they chose not to have the shot.
Yeah, I mean, right there it goes to our freedom of what we can and can't do. I mean, we still have freedom.
Because you are aware that in this city, which is an entertainment city, entertainment capital of the world, they're not going to open everything up 100% until there's at least 60% vaccination within the employee rank.
Can you tell me how they're actually accruing these numbers?
Well, I guess as an employee, I know someone who works at one of the hotels here, and they know when you had the shot because they issue the shots.
Right.
At the hotels.
But if we have people going to CVS and Walgreens and their doctor's offices, I mean, is there a database that has these numbers in it? Where?
Through them. It's just like if you go to get a prescription, you're on a database. They know what medications you're taking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same thing. You go into that same database.
Right. But I'm saying, like, if somebody shows their COVID card and it has numbers and stuff on it, how are you determining that that's a correct one?
And that's where there's a problem.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no database.
So just showing that card doesn't prove anything.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you know somebody didn't do something to the card? Or
we know people forge ID all the time.
That's what I'm trying to determine. Like, if somebody shows me their COVID vaccine card, I'm going to think they had the shot. But how do I know that that's actually their card?
So this is a great conversation because think about it. This is worldwide. This isn't just here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a situation that's taking place right now all over the world.
Right.
So how's that being handled? I haven't heard yet how they're handling it from other places in the world, but you've got a point. And think about this too. If you know the right doctor or you know the right medical facility where you say you had the shot and you really didn't, what would keep someone from saying they put them in the databases having had the shot, but they chose not to anyway?
Right. That's my point.
This is an interesting situation.
Yeah. Honestly, there's all walks of life. And there's a lot of computer people out there that are geniuses. That's the thing. You don't know. Like, you don't have a scanner right there on your phone that says, oh yeah, you actually did here at this time and this is what you did and then this is a real card. So you don't, that's what I'm saying. It's just so hard to determine. When we got the flu shot, because we get the flu shot every year at the hospital, we always have a sticker on our badge, right? That says the year that we got our flu shot and then all of the paperwork. Are you going to carry that paperwork and that sticker around to confirm that you had the flu shot? No, I mean, you're not gonna. So I can tell you I got the flu shot. I can show it at work that I got it, but I can tell you, how do you know I actually got it?
Right. So this is going to, I think I can see this.
Yeah, right. So it's confusing.
Well,
it really
and
is.
I think what's fair, or not fair, is that some people are almost forced into a situation if you want to keep your job. Or, like, I know there's other hotels here where you don't have to have the shot, but if you don't have the shot, you have to get tested twice a month, and you have to pay for those tests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my girlfriends had to get the shot in order to keep her job. And they literally said, if you don't get the shot, you can't work here with us because we have compromised patients and we can just hire somebody that will.
The reason I'm bringing that up is because you shared with me you work with a patient who had the shot and is now on a ventilator.
Yep.
And that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. I'm not trying to sway people one way or the other because, like I said, I had the shots.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying that, do we live in a society where we need someone to dictate to us what we need and what we don't need? I do believe we need to stay safe if we can.
Yeah.
I definitely believe if you haven't had the shot, you should be wearing the mask. For now, until we know that this crisis has passed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that we need a society where it's being forced on us either.
Like dictatorship?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of all goes together. And who knows if any of these religions that we have here, they can't take the vaccine because it's against their religion. Who knows?
There are religions that I've listened
You know, like
I'm
there's...
not going to go into all of those, but there are some here that they
Right.
totally against their religion.
Right, like there could be something like eggs or something. Okay, well, the vaccine has eggs, so I can't take the vaccine because it's against my religion. You know what I mean? We have to, at some point, have to be respectful for everybody's individuality, and we can't all be blanket the same.
I'm wondering if there's even a solution to what we're talking about. Because if we want to live in a society where we can travel freely and not without worry, then the argument would be, well, then you need to have the vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's something that there's no guarantee this is going to work anyway, because there is no guarantee right now. I'm confused a little, I guess you could say. Because I agree with you, we didn't really do enough study on these vaccines to see how effective they're going to be. And to be honest with you, we're not going to know right now.
No.
It's going to take several years.
It will.
Before it's almost like we're a giant experiment.
You guys are all petri dishes, as far as I'm concerned. Like, who knows what's growing?
I'm in that petri dish.
I know, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But, we don't have the 10 years of growth pattern in this vaccine. We don't know. And that is my hesitation. And I respect anybody who gets their vaccine and is 100% for it. And their situation is different. I am 110% respectful of everybody's individuality. But you have to be respectful of how I feel as well. I don't think there's enough studies for me to put it inside my body as of yet.
I think that the only fear that I have is that it's almost like when we have a surgery. Well, I'll give you an example. I had a back ailment as well. And for 2.5 years, people could not see what was wrong with me. So they would assume when I would say I'm in pain or I'm in tears that it's just fake, that I'm making that up, that it's really not real because I look great, right? And the reality
you can't
is
see
I
it.
was in a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they want to give me shots for my back. They're not epidurals, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where it deadens it.
Mm-hmm.
But
nerve block.
But it didn't take care of the problem. The disc was still bulging up against the spine. So what that does, it gives you a false sense of security because now you think you're fine. Once it's deadened, you don't have that pain. And you could go out there and lift something and actually damage it worse.
Absolutely.
And actually, that's exactly what happens. Because I thought I was fine and now I'm back to doing my normal things, I did more damage than good. Whereas if they had just removed the bulge in the first place, I wouldn't have been in that situation. Or found a way to reduce it. So I'm feeling that right now in that I've had the shots and now I feel like I'm fine. I can go and do whatever I want. But we really don't know that.
Unfortunately, no.
So that's the thing I think that scares me the most is that you're in a false sense of reality. And that because you've had the shots, you're immune to this. And we really don't know that that's true.
Right. That's very true. I mean, especially when they said you have to get boosters and this is not the end. Next year, it might be you have to get a booster or you have to get 2 shots at this point again because it's back. I personally think that now COVID, the coronavirus, is going to be the next flu. I mean, I don't see it going anywhere. To be honest with you,
like
James. Right. Well, to be honest with you, what happened to our flu season this year? Where did it go? All of a sudden it just appeared? I don't know. I didn't hear any flu. None whatsoever. And it just like poof, gone.
So do you think that this virus maybe has taken over in a sense that it's really, maybe it has taken the place of the flu?
Yeah, I actually do. I mean, I got my flu shot this year. Like I said, I'm not against doing that stuff. That has a lot of studies. I'm very familiar with it. And I don't really consider calling the vaccine a vaccine because it's not really eradicating anything. I think it would be a shot.
It's not like the polio vaccine.
It is not.
That's what we need to talk about here, too,
yeah.
a little bit. In that was a worldwide epidemic as well, but that was literally a cure.
Right.
So there's a difference. That was a cure. And what we're doing is basically treating the flu, in a sense.
In a sense, yeah. I mean, and what does the vaccine do? It puts a false sense of COVID in your body to have your body fight with the immunity to get your cells to react. Well, if you don't have COVID, but your body gets COVID put in because you have this false sense of COVID going through your body, how do you know you're going to react to it well? I mean, some people aren't. I mean, like I said, I have a lot of patients on mechanical ventilation that got the COVID vaccine of all ages, all ethics, all weights. They're not just obese and have cardiac diseases. Like there's actually some, they're very fit and they're healthy, and that's what happened.
You
so
actually were telling me you were with a young man who was very healthy.
Yeah.
And now is on a ventilator.
Yeah, a young one. And so you're kind of floored. But you don't hear that in the media. Why not? You hear the one side, but you don't hear the other. Then people can really make a decision on knowing both sides.
And I think that's exactly what we're getting at here. So it needs to be a decision. Like I said, I kind of made the decision really based on the fact that I needed to stay in business. And I don't know that I would or would not have anyway, to be honest, because I want people to be safe around me. But there again, that's a false sense of security because how do I know that I'm making it safe for people around me because we haven't done enough studies.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm just sitting back and watching for right now. Working in the hospitals out here, a lot of healthcare providers, you have a 50-50. We have people that stand up, hit their arm and says, I'm part of the change, right? There's social media out there, and then you have healthcare like me who's like, wait, we don't have enough studies. So, but we do make sure that we are protected. I am 100% educated on how I can protect myself. I know how I need to put a mask on. I know I need to put gloves on. I know I need to put goggles on. I respect that, and I'm not here to get anybody sick. because I decide not to get the vaccine, I will put my PPE on and make sure that I take care of people around me, for sure.
Well, I guess we're not going to solve the problems of the world today, but
No.
I'd like to thank you both for being on the show. Terry, you didn't say too much today. You're going to have you back.
Okay. Well, I will say one thing. How come when it first came out, they said if you're over 18, you don't need it? Excuse me, because the children have such a high antibody system.
Under 18. Under 18.
Yeah.
Under 18.
Yeah.
That's what I said, under 18. But to 18 and up. But now they have the little kids, and now that part really tears me up.
And I think what it is it goes back to what Jessica was saying, in that they're discovering things as they go along. So we're still in the experimental stage with this. It's too new to know what's going on.
Right. And I would not experiment with kids. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for them to try to mandate the vaccines for the kids to go back to school, there is already recent studies showing that the kids do not spread COVID. So just wondering if they don't see that study or if they just put that study aside. But there's a legit study out there that said that kids do not spread COVID.
So I don't know. I don't have any answers at all. The observant one here. And like I said, I think anyone has the right to make their own decisions, just like with religion.
Absolutely.
That's up to you.
Well, I have to say, I went to the hospital a couple times, and I said right off, don't ask me. I don't want it. I'm fine. And they respected me.
Yeah. The healthcare, they do. And that's what I don't understand.
I just say no.
The hotel industry and the hospitality industry is forcing it upon their employees, but the healthcare is not. Why is that?
That's kind of odd.
Yes.
Right. That's what I was thinking, too.
All right. Again. We don't know. Anyway, thank you both for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
We'll have you back again in the future.
Sure.
On a different show, a little bit different, lighter topic, maybe.
Right? I know.
All right. Thanks, Jessica, and thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Common Thread Radio Show. Please tell us what you think. What would you like us to discuss, or a topic you feel needs talking about? Until next time, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, we are all born innocent of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice. We only know and grow into what we are taught.